السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. أوصيكم ونفسي بتقوى الله فإن الله تعالى مع المتقين. وبعد. The Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he gave us a formula to follow which will protect us from many areas of this life which we should not find ourselves within. The Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he said, إن الحلال بين وإن الحرام بين وبينهما أمور مشتبهات لا يعلمهن كثير من الناس. The Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he said the halal is clear and the haram is clear, and between them are matters that are not known to many, i.e. grey areas. He said, فَمَنِ اتَّقَى الشُّبُهَاتِ فَقَدْ اسْتَبْرَأَ لِدِينِهِ وَعِرْضِهِ. The one who protects himself from those matters that are unknown, has protected his deen and his honor. And he said, وَمَنْ وَقَعَ فِي الشُّبُهَاتِ وَقَعَ فِي الْحَرَامِ. The one who falls into the shubuhat, the doubtful matters, the gray areas, has fallen into haram. Meaning what? There are matters that are clear to every single person. Al-halal. We are not allowed to drink. We are not allowed to eat certain foods. We are not allowed to engage in certain transactions. And there are matters which are unknown to many of us. To give some recent examples, perhaps certain currencies, certain contracts, certain types of trade and transaction, and perhaps even sometimes certain foods, certain ingredients. The Prophet ﷺ, he's saying, the one who stays away from the doubtful as well as the haram is protecting his deen and his honor. Why? Because on Yawm al-Qiyamah, he's not going to be questioned. He's not going to be questioned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for that which he did not engage in. And in front of the people, he is not going to be judged. The people will not look at this person and say this person is doing something haram when he's doing something doubtful. Because the doubtful matters, to some, they may assume them to be haram. To others, they may assume them to be halal. And so if we apply this in our lives practically, we protect ourselves from many areas we should not be found within in the first place. And the gray areas, the unknown matters, they become a buffer zone for the known matters. The unknown becomes a buffer zone for the halal and the haram. If I am not going to engage in issues that are unknown or doubtful, then definitely I'm not going to engage in matters that are haram. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said in another hadith, مَا أَمَرْتُكُمْ بِهِ فَأْتُوا مِنْهُ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. That which I have commanded you towards or instructed you towards, do of it what you can. فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. The principle that we find in the Quran. Do of it what you can, i.e. if you can only do the fara'id, do the fara'id. And whatever you can do on top of that, add. But he said, وَمَا نَهَيْتُكُمْ عَنْهُ فَاجْتَنِبُوهُ. That which I have prohibited you from, stay away from it. Look at the difference. That which I have instructed you towards, do of it what you can. But that which I have prohibited you from, stay away from it. Stay away from it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الزِّنَا. Do not come close. Do not come close to zina, to fornication. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he does not tell us, do not do not engage in. No, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, do not come close. Add this to the hadith. مَا نَهَيْتُكُمْ عَنْهُ فَاجْتَنِبُوهُ. Make it general. That which we have been prohibited from, do not get close to it. How do you keep yourself from getting close to the haram? By giving yourself a buffer zone. By giving yourself an area between you and the haram. What is that area? The shubuhat, the unclear matters. Give the example of eating food of the people of the book. Today, you will find those who will say that you can eat from the people of the book here in the UK. What does it mean? Eating McDonald's and eating KFC and eating Burger King. And then you will have those who will say, no, it's haram. It's haram. They will say it's haram. So what approach do we take? We take the approach of, this is unclear. There are some saying it's halal, some saying it's haram. Let me protect my deen and protect my honor. Let me protect my deen and protect my honor. Why? Because on Yawm al-Qiyamah, I'm going to be questioned. I'm going to be questioned on Yawm al-Qiyamah. And on the day, or in front of the people, I'm going to be blamed. Someone who believes that McDonald's or Burger King or KFC is haram, they're going to see me eating it and they're going to say, Allahu musta'an. Please take the plastic bottle from the child. They're going to say, Allahu musta'an. This person does not fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This person does not fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Because they're doing something which some believe is to be haram. Even though you may take the opinion that it's halal. And just for clarity, eating McDonald's and KFC and Burger King is not permissible. It's not permissible. Those that try to say that it's the food of the people of the book have you been to any of these stores lately? Do they look like people of the book? They're not people of the book. And secondly, we have an abundance of halal. We have an abundance of halal. So why would you go to something which is questionable, to say the least, when you have many options that are halal? Shahwa, desires. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, stay away from the unclear matters and you won't fall into haram. You won't be judged by the people. And then he gave the example, كَالرَّاعِ يَرْعَى حَوْلَ الْحِمَى. Just like the shepherd who is allowing his flock to graze around a boundary, a sanctuary that does not belong to him. What's going to happen? The cow cannot tell the difference between the halal blades of grass and the haram blades of grass. So what will happen? Eventually the cow will eat from the haram, will eat from that which does not belong to his or her shepherd. And so who falls into the haram? The shepherd. So likewise, if we are engaging in that which is doubtful, eventually what's going to happen? We're going to take from the haram. And we are going to be sinful. Why? Because we did not protect our deen and our honor. We didn't stay away. What's happening today though? You are finding individuals who are looking for the loopholes. Looking for the loopholes. Looking for the doubtful matters. Looking for the areas where there is a lack of clarity, so that they can take advantage, so that they can follow their desires, so that they can enjoy the pleasures of that which they're supposed to be abstaining from. Whether it's in marriage, whether it's in food, whether it's in making money. And this is a sign which, to say the least, is very worrying. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala informs us about past nations, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks sternly against past nations who engaged in the very same methodology of approach. Think about Ashab al-Sabt, those who were prohibited from fishing on Saturdays. So what did they do? They laid the nets on Fridays and they collected the fish on Sundays and said, technically we weren't fishing. Technically. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows. And the end result of these people, just read the Quran, what happened to them. And today we have taken the same approach in many areas. The Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, a Bedouin man came to him and he said to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, Mata sa'a, when is the hour? And the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, eventually he said, إِذَا ضُيِّعَتِ الْأَمَانَةِ, if the amana is lost. What is amana? Trustworthiness, the ability to uphold that which we have been made responsible for. And one of the greatest or the greatest form of amana that we have upon our shoulders is amanatul deen, the responsibility of al-Islam. The responsibility of al-Islam. Islam is not a contract. Islam is not something we look at the small print and find a way out. No, this is the action of a munafiq, a hypocrite. Someone who doesn't have taqwa in their heart. I don't follow the Hanafi madhab, but suddenly when it comes to marriage, I'm a Hanafi. I don't follow the Shafi'i madhab, but when it comes to marriage, I'm a Shafi'i. I'm marrying someone of a distance of 80 kilometers or more so that I don't have to talk to their wali. This is playing with the deen. This is not taqwa. The Prophet ﷺ, he said in another hadith, ayatul munafiq, and he mentioned three things. إِذَا حَدَّثَ كَذَبْ, and in the end of it, إِذَا تُمِنَ خَانٍ, if he is given a responsibility, he breaks that responsibility. He betrays the trust. Betrays the trust. One of the greatest trusts that we are betraying right now is the trust of leadership of our families. For the men. الرِّجَالُ قَوَّامُونَ عَلَى النِّسَاءِ, the men are responsible for their households. And in today's confused society, we look at this as, we talk about leadership as if it's a good thing. The men are the leaders. It's power, authority. No, it's responsibility. In the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on Yawm al-Qiyamah, every man is going to be questioned about his wife and his children. Every man is going to be held accountable about his wife and his children. Every man who has left some children somewhere, he does not visit them, he does not spend his money on them, he does not give them his time, he's going to be questioned about those children. The men that take advantage of vulnerable women, they are going to be questioned about their actions. The men who have wives all over the world, they're going to be questioned about those women. The men who spend all of their hours at work and have no time for their children or their wives at home, they're going to be questioned. If we really understood al-qawwama, perhaps we would be upset about the fact that we have been made responsible over our households. Why? Responsibility. It's a responsibility. And today you have many that like to point fingers at the women and blame the women for their actions. Look at these women coming out and they're not covering properly and they're doing this and they're doing that, etc. Where are the men? Where are the men? Where are the men that are supposed to be responsible for these women? Where are the fathers? Where are the brothers? Where are the grandfathers? Where are the uncles? It's amana. What did the Prophet ﷺ say? إِذَا ضُيِّعَتِ الْأَمَانَةِ فَانْتَظِرِ السَّاعَةِ. If the amana is lost, wait for the hour. Our households are an amana, responsibility upon our shoulders. Responsibility. The Prophet ﷺ, the greatest of men, the greatest of creation, he was the commander of the believers on the battlefield, in the political arena, when calling others to Islam. When it came to the economy of Islam and the Muslims, when it came to rectification and mediation and so on and so forth, yet he still had time for his wives, not wife, wives and children. The best of men. But many of us today, Islam has become salah, beard, eating halal, staying away from haram on a surface level. But when it comes to the actual substance of Islam, where is it? It's missing. It's missing. And as has been said multiple times in the past, multiple times, and then we want to point fingers at those that are external and blame them for our situation, and we want to cry over Palestine and the situation of the Ummah. No, we should cry over ourselves. Cry over ourselves. We want to talk about men that are falling into the red pill movement, women that are falling into feminism. Where is it coming from? It's coming from the homes. If a young woman grows up in a household, her father is absent, she sees her mother working hard, her mother has to fend for herself, she looks around, she sees likewise in her community the same thing is happening. What do you expect she's going to become? Of course she's going to be vulnerable to feminism. Of course. Likewise, the men. When you have a young man growing up in a society and the position of the man has been stripped, being a man now has no value, no weight. The men in his life, they're not acting like men, they're acting like grown children. What do you think he's going to fall into? He's vulnerable now to this, I don't know what to say, the red pill movement, where it's all about showing muscles and wearing tight clothes. We have to look at ourselves and reflect. Al-amana. It all goes back to al-amana. Responsibility. Brothers that want to play computer games all day whilst they have a wife and a child. Where's the responsibility? Brothers that want to be out all day with their friends, or out all night with their friends whilst they have a wife and a child at home. Where's the amana? We are responsible for our ummah, not the women, the men. We are responsible for our ummah. And we have to take the reins, and we have to change things. Look at history. Look at history. It's the men that have made the change in society. Yes, women have a major role to play, but it's the men. And so if the women are not acting upright, ask yourself the question, where are the men? Al-amana. Al-amana. Responsibility. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله وحده صلوات ربي وسلامه على أشرف الأنبياء ومن تبعه وبعد. We look to the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام. We look to the Sahaba رضي الله تعالى عنهم أجمعين. We look to the Tabi'een رحمهم الله تعالى. And we find that they were men and women, of course, of amana. They were men and women of amana. And the greatest amana that we have is the amana of deen. But the deen is not to pray 5 times a day and to fast the month of Ramadan and then to live a mediocre, halalified lifestyle where we're trying to act like the kuffar, running after houses and cars and nice clothes and fine food. As long as it's halal, no, that's not the day, that's not our deen, that's not our way of life. Our way of life is to establish that which is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Where does it start? In our households. In our households. And our ummah is going to continue to suffer so long as the men are not acting like men. That's the reality. Our ummah is going to continue to suffer so long as the men are not acting like men. One of the ulama of the past, وَعَاشِرُوهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ, and treat them with kindness and in good ways. One of the ulama of the past, he said that this ayah refers to حَمْلُ أَذَاهُنْ, for the man to be able to forbear the harm and difficulty that comes from a woman. Where the man is able to forbear the harm and difficulty that comes from a woman. The Prophet ﷺ with Aisha radiallahu anha, when she became upset and she smashed something in front of the Prophet ﷺ, how did the Prophet ﷺ react? Tahammul, forbearing, and he excused her behavior. Likewise, Umar radiallahu anhu, one of the companions came to Umar to complain about his wife. He knocked on the door of Umar. Umar came out and he heard the women of the household of Umar upset and emotional. And he said to him, I came to complain about that which I see you have been afflicted by as well. That's it. Hamlu adahun. This is being a man. How many situations today you find a man is arguing with the woman, not like a man? Today, men backbiting, gossiping, slandering, like women. In fact, worse than women. Worse than women. Go online. Men, all they do is gossip. The women will say they're acting like women. Being a man is a part of the deen, but it's not to wear tight clothes and have muscles and to stamp and to stomp and to act like you have some sort of authority. No, that's not being a man. That's being a grown adolescent. That's being an oversized child. Being a man is bearing the responsibility and the burden of your household and your ummah. And the only way you can do that is through sacrifice. Sacrifice. Time, wealth, health. This is the reality. It's the reality. If we really open the door, we open the door to what's going on behind the curtain, or we lifted the curtain, I should say. Most of the problems in our community, at large, go back to lack of men. Lack of men. Absent fathers. Absent husbands. This is our responsibility. And those who deal with the problems of our ummah, they will say the same thing. They will say the same thing. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to uphold the responsibility of being men, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to uphold the responsibility of the deen. أقول قولي هذا اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد وارض اللهم عن أبي بكر وعن عمر وعن عثمان وعن علي وعن سائر الصحابة أجمعين اللهم تب علينا واعف عنا اللهم وفقنا في إقامة الدين يا رب العالمين اللهم وفقنا في أهالينا يا مجيب الدعوات اللهم انصر إخواننا في أنحاء العالمين يا رب العالمين اللهم ارفع راية الإسلام واجعلنا من الناصرين له وأقم الصلاة.